In today's video, I would like to present an heirloom clock which has been in my family for over 100 years. It would appear that this clock has been in the family for approximately 112 years, and I wanted to document this because at present this clock will have been passed through 6 generations, and therefore it's quite fascinating. Now, this clock is a Vienna Regulator clock. It is signed Heinrich Heers, Zürich, and probably was purchased around 1912. Now, the history of this clock is the following. The clock was procured by my great-grandfather, Louis Alfred Montandon. Now, he was an immigrant to the United States from Switzerland, and he immigrated with his children and his wife. Now, this first wife died in 1911, and after her death, he did return to Switzerland, and in 1912 and 1913, we do see him making voyages. And this is rather interesting. We do find him returning to the United States, and this was on April 16th, 1912, and he appears to have been accompanied by his oldest son, Louis Henry. Now, we do find a Henry Montandon, also U.S. citizen as Alfred, who was 15 years of age at that time. Now, Alfred and Henry were manifested on the ship as manifest lines number 2 and number 3. So at the bare minimum, he appears to have been accompanied by this son. They're on the same ship. The ship was the Niagara. It departed Le Havre in France. And this is all rather interesting, as I had not realized that he returned to Switzerland with one of his children, and this is at bare minimum, but these are what the immigration documents in Ellis Island do show. Now, he also made a trip, apparently, in 1913, because we see September 9th, 1913, we see him returning to the U.S. again. So it was most likely one of these trips when he delivered this clock. Now, these clocks, there apparently may be more than one of these clocks, and he had many children. I believe he had upwards of 8 children, and all the children remained in the United States, but he would eventually repatriate to Switzerland, and in 1914 remarried his second wife, and he stayed in Switzerland until his death in 1930. But this clock is very interesting, and this has been passed down through the generations. Now, from what I've been able to glean from data available, we do find a Heinrich Heers in Zürich, and he had been working for a Frau. We do find her under the commercial registrations, and this is the company was the firm of Frau A. Gassmann in Zurich, and this we do find records from the 1890s where Heinrich Heers was an authorized dealer under this Gassmann. Now, Gassmann still exists today in Zurich. So this Frau A. Gassmann appears to have been the inheritor of this business, and this business appears to have been involved in fashionable clothes, books, and apparently clock sales. And in 1899, there is a registration that this firma, Frau A. Gassmann in Zurich, re-registered its location. Their authorized dealer was Heinrich Heers, and this was on Newmarkt Street number 7. And I have located this on the map of Zurich, and this would have been relatively close to the main train station in Zurich. we do find the so-called Zürich Hofbahn, and it's relatively close. Now, this may have changed. It's most likely Alfred would have purchased this clock either in 1912 or 1913 and taken it back as a gift for one of his children. He may have done this several times. There appears to have been clocks for several of the children, perhaps all of the Swiss-born children. Now, he would have approximately half of his children in Switzerland and the other half in America. But it is quite fascinating that if he most likely, now he was living at Colombier, this is quite close to Neuchâtel City, when he repatriated, so he probably took the train from Neuchâtel to Zurich, and he probably took an international train from Zurich train station to Paris, and from Paris on to Le Havre, where the transatlantic ship would have departed for New York. So this is rather interesting. We can trace a little bit this the voyage of this clock, and this is rather fascinating. In the clock itself, these regulators were quite popular at the time, and this is a beautiful clock, and we do see Heinrich Heer's signed the dial, and it is signed Zurich. So we can be quite sure that this the seller of this clock was this who was associated with this Gassmann. So, and this appears to have been in business for several decades. Clearly, it would have been still in business when Alfred purchased the clock. So this was a very prosperous, very successful venture, it would appear. But the clock is interesting in that we see that the pendulum is marked in French for reverse, retard, and avance. Rather, they have these R and A, so for both directions. And the clock is really beautiful in its construction with these ornate scrolls, but also of interest is the genealogical voyage of this clock, which I want to present. Now, Louis Alfred, he would have been bringing the clock in 1912, 1913, and he passed this, clearly he passed this on to his son Arthur, and Arthur would have passed this on to my father, Arthur Dennis. And Arthur Dennis is presenting this clock forward to his son, John Arthur, who John Arthur has two children, of which, and this is, we're already speaking of John Arthur and I are twins. We are the fourth tier in this generational transfer. So his children, Jordan and Cassie, are the fifth generation. Now, the inheritor of this clock will be one of their children. This will either be the present child of Cassie, who is Beckett Chapman, or the child of Jordan, who is yet unborn. This will be a sixth generation for this heirloom. And this is really fascinating because at this point when this clock is received, this will have been, well, this could be easily into the 200th year history of this item. And this is really fascinating that this will have been passed to at least six generations. But this is a very long time to be in a family, and it is probable that this clock will go to Jordan and to his offspring, as this will remain in the Montandon family, and it is a prized possession. And I remember growing up with this clock, and it's always something that was viewed with a lot of respect and gravitas, in that we knew that this was a singular object in the family history, and it has had Swiss roots. So this is quite important in the identity of our family. But I just wanted to document this fascinating family heirloom. And although it is not a Montandan fabricated clock, it was the clock that was gifted by my great-grandfather through the family, and it is something that's worth sharing and documenting. So thank you for your interest, and I hope you have a very nice weekend. Bye-bye.